how do you talk to your kid about what sex is? I'm here with JD, aka Jen Divine from superstarhealtheducation.com, and I'm Kathy Vartuli from theintimacydojo.com. And you talk to kids all the time about this. So how would, if you wanted what's sex?
That is one of the most popular questions in the anonymous question box. What is sex? Are we going to talk about the word that starts with S and ends with X?
Well, I love it. You have it. You can see this. Younger child has written it out. It's on your refrigerator.
Yes. It says, how does sex work? Answer it, please. It's probably a fourth grader that wrote that one.
Yeah.
So here's how I like to define it, because I think one of the most important things with kids when they ask a question is to define the word first. Mm-hmm. So I often say, sex can be when people decide they're going to let their genitals come together. Actually, usually I say sex is when people decide they're going to let their bodies come together. Mm-hmm. And it might include their genitals. And they do that with permission. Mm-hmm. And it's usually people who have some understanding of what they plan on doing at that time.
Yeah.
So that's what sex is. People getting together with their bodies, maybe their genitals, and it's usually with permission. Of course, I sometimes also bring in that sometimes there are occasions where that happens without permission, and what that means, and we talk about that.
Yeah. I love that you make it not about gender. It's mm-hmm. not necessarily about marriage. Like, I remember when I was back in, I think it was 5th grade, they taught us, like, a mother and father, like husband and wife. It was all very binary, and mm-hmm. I love how you make it's just two people can get together.
I even say people,
so it doesn't,
because there are polyamorous families
yes.
too who may have more than two people who mm-hmm. are involved in what they call sex.
Yeah. And
I also say that it might not involve genitals, because mm-hmm. not all sex does involve what people call private parts, which is a word I'll talk about that later. But so because there are folks for whom, I have a friend whose most erotic place, because they have a spinal cord injury, happens to be their hand and their thumb, and that's their place that they want to get erotic touch, and that's sex for them.
Like, genitals are not necessarily the ones that...
So I try to broaden what it means, because people have an idea, and often the idea is only penis going in vagina behavior, mm-hmm. and there's a lot of other things people do and include
that feel
as sex.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah. And, like, telling that to a young kid is really important to be super inclusive, because what I find when I teach high school students, what they think sex is, also varies by community.
Yeah.
And what they count as sex varies by who you talk to. Mm-hmm. And so there'll be people who'll say things like, well, I haven't had sex yet. And the other person's like, oh, great, so you're a virgin. And they're like, oh, I haven't had sex yet. And that doesn't actually disclose all the things they may have done mm-hmm. that could include some risky behaviors mm-hmm. or could include some information they might want to let the other partner know.
Yeah.
So when people say, oh, let's get together. Yeah, let's get together. I don't want to have sex yet. Okay, me neither. Now, do these two people know what they're talking about?
Not necessarily.
No! Like, this person's like, cool, sex means don't touch breasts, genitals, no making out, nothing sexual at all. And this person's like, sex just means penis and vagina.
I can get
I can do everything else, right? Like, wait a minute. This doesn't work. So, try to be as inclusive as possible about what even sex means with little kids.
And what if they ask more questions at that point? Like, how do you know how much to share if they're like, hey, okay, I get that, but what do they actually do? Because I know I was reading very bad romance novels that my aunt had given us from the library, and there were like the naughty scenes, and I was trying to figure out what sex was from that. And it was really, like, they're always the best. Very vague sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the age group and what's age appropriate for you and your family. In classrooms, I also kind of base it on where the kids are, what kind of questions they're asking mm-hmm. in the classroom. So you can get into detail, and also mm-hmm. depends about what level of boundaries and comfort you have with the topic, mm-hmm. right? So you can say, well, sometimes people might put a penis inside a vagina. Sometimes other objects could go into body parts. Sometimes people let mouths and genitals touch in ways. So sometimes you give some detail and stop, and then see if the kid's wanting to know more, or they're like, too much information
I'm gonna go watch cartoons or whatever.
Right? So it kind of depends on where the kid is age appropriate, mm-hmm. Age appropriate and developmentally as well. Yeah,
thanks. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below. We'd love to hear, and we'll be back with I have another question for you.
Okay.